Hey everybody, how are you all doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to discuss a little bit further this whole mystery around the Legend of Zelda 35th anniversary, which is happening this year, and if Nintendo will or will not acknowledge it. So we all know that leading into 2021, it was a potentially very exciting year because of a couple of big anniversaries happening in the world of Nintendo. First and foremost, of course, is my favorite franchise, and the one that I'm hoping Nintendo acknowledges, which is Metroid, turning 35 this year, and I will most likely also make a video about Metroid and the anniversary thing in the coming days or weeks as well. But the other one, of course, is The Legend of Zelda, also turning 35 this year, and I wanted to focus more on that because it feels like the more immediate topic and the more immediate franchise that folks are paying attention to. Of course, part of the reason more folks are paying attention to it is because, let's be honest with ourselves, Zelda is a much bigger franchise than Metroid, as much as that hurts me to say. And because of that, everyone has been waiting on pins and needles to see if Nintendo will acknowledge the 35th anniversary and what they might do for it. Before I dive any deeper into the Zelda 35th anniversary topic, I do want to remind you I'm always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I upload and post several videos every single week, focusing on Nintendo, focusing on Metroid, and covering all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then hopefully you will consider subscribing to the channel. So will Nintendo acknowledge the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda and potentially give us some really exciting new games or products? I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. I'm just going to tell you guys right here and now at the beginning of this video that yes, I do think they're going to do that. And I know that a lot of people maybe doubt Nintendo's ability to acknowledge the 35th anniversary simply because of last week's Nintendo Direct, which was very divisive and polarizing as they always tend to be. Even 530 days later, a new Nintendo Direct comes along and the same division is still what happened once that Direct was done, and people liked it, people hated it, people were in the middle, yada yada yada. And one of the big conversations was The Legend of Zelda. I talked about that and covered that a little bit. The fact that they did acknowledge The Legend of Zelda at the end, and they even announced Skyward Sword HD coming to the Switch, which to me is extremely exciting, and I cannot wait to pick it up. But of course, the notable absence of Breath of the Wild 2, which we all thought would be one of the main focuses for Nintendo this year, and once we knew a Direct was coming, most of us thought Breath of the Wild 2 was almost a shoo-in to show up. And I think a little bit of what happened once that Direct was over is that Nintendo's choice to feature Eiji Aonuma and to show Zelda and discuss Zelda, give us some new Zelda game, and even to have him reference Breath of the Wild 2, but not actually discuss or show the game, kind of made it sting a little bit more for a lot of people. I, of course, was definitely very sad at the fact that we didn't see Breath of the Wild 2, and yes, I was shocked that he said, we're working on the game, it's just not ready to show, and we'll talk about it later. I mean, I really couldn't believe that that was happening. It felt very weird and very strange in the moment. And because of that, people felt like maybe Nintendo teased them with Zelda, or was dangling a Zelda-laced carrot in front of them about Breath of the Wild 2 and all of these other Zelda things that people have been wanting, so that when we didn't see Breath of the Wild 2, and we only got one game revealed at that Nintendo Direct, a lot of people felt maybe extra disappointed than they otherwise would have. Is that the right thing for people to feel, yes or no? I mean, you know, everyone's going to have their own opinion, and that's fine. I think that it's maybe people being a little bit too, I don't want to say greedy. I guess I'll say I think it's people maybe jumping the gun. Because I think that what happened is folks just assumed that Nintendo was done with Zelda for all of 2021, and they're not going to talk about the 35th anniversary, and we're not going to see Breath of the Wild, and it's just all going to fall apart. I think that's what happened. People got a little bit too quick to pull the trigger on Zelda, and it's like, you guys, it's only February. This is the first Direct in 530 days. There's 10 months of the year still to go. We know E3 is coming back and doing something over the summer. We need to relax, accept the cool Zelda info we did get today, and let's wait to see what happens the rest of the year. And so that recap is really just a long way for me to say and reiterate the point that I made at the beginning here, which is that I do think that some sort of 35th anniversary celebration is coming for The Legend of Zelda. I mean, and I know a lot of people won't agree with this. I referenced this either on a video or a live stream recently, but I do want to say this again here. I actually think that their decision to even acknowledge Zelda at all in this Direct, to me, is proof that they're going to further acknowledge it and celebrate the 35th anniversary some point later. Now, the reason I say that is because we all knew it was the 35th anniversary going into that Direct. We expected a lot of Zelda stuff. And in that Direct, Nintendo, in my opinion at least, by Nintendo deciding to include The Legend of Zelda, to have Eiji Aonuma address Breath of the Wild 2, and to give us even any Zelda game, to me, showed that Nintendo was acknowledging, hey, we know it's a big year, we know it's time for Zelda, and it's early. It's the first handful of weeks of 2021, so here's a tease. Here's just a taste by one game that we're going to be releasing this year, you know, an HD remaster of a classic Zelda game, and we're going to let you know Breath of the Wild 2 development's coming along, it's going very well, and we're going to address it at a later time. Nintendo saying that at the beginning of the year means there's plenty of time in this year for Nintendo to still address Breath of the Wild 2. And I think that, like I said, just having them talk about and feature Zelda at all as a franchise means that they're just whetting our appetite for when they probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, actually do celebrate the anniversary with some kind of maybe a Direct presentation or an E3 presentation in a couple of months. I can totally understand how maybe a lot of people took the opposite information away from this, thinking that, oh, I guess this is all they have for Zelda. The fact that the first time Nintendo addressed us in 2021, they didn't celebrate the 35th anniversary and show us Breath of the Wild 2, and they instead just gave us Skyward Sword HD, means, oh, this is it. This is the only thing they're doing, and they're giving up on Zelda for the rest of the year. I can sort of connect the dots in my brain to understand how maybe some folks, and maybe even some of you guys, felt that way when you saw the Direct. All I can say without knowing any facts or details, just speculating as a fan, all I can say is I just kind of took it as the opposite. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, maybe other folks are being overly pessimistic. Tough to say until we know more, but I love the fact that they talked about Zelda. I love the fact, after I sat on it for a day or two, I love the fact that he referenced Breath of the Wild 2 and said we're going to share more information later. Because like I already said, I put together in my brain the timeline, and it's like, month number 2, they give us this info. There's still 10 months to go. There's still E3 coming. They gave us a 35th anniversary Direct celebration for Mario last year. Why aren't they also going to do the same thing for their other titanic, massive franchise, The Legend of Zelda? And again, they're whetting our appetites today because I think in a couple of months they're going to really cut loose and give us a big celebration. Does that mean that we're getting all the information and blowout on Breath of the Wild 2 and a Wind Waker HD port and a Twilight Princess HD port and an Ocarina of Time HD port and a Majora's Mask HD port, you know, if you can see where I'm going? If they're just going to give us tons of Zelda games, does this mean that they're for sure going to do that? I mean, I don't know, man. I feel like if I was to just predict what they would do for a 35th anniversary celebration, obviously I think they're going to announce some kind of kitschy little goofy things like a limited edition t-shirt, or maybe they're going to do a Game & Watch like a Zelda thing, or another Lego set that's a Zelda thing. You know, mirror some of the kind of side release stuff that they did for the Mario 35th celebration. Maybe they do, you know, like we talked about, some sort of online Zelda game that mimics Mario 35, sure. But as far as the big things, I would think, yeah, they're going to address Breath of the Wild 2. I think that they would probably give us a title and maybe tease like a big thing later again. You know, maybe they keep using presentations to tease future presentations. That actually would get kind of annoying now that I think about it, so I hope they don't do that, but it's Nintendo, so you never know. Basically, I do think they would address Breath of the Wild 2 and hopefully give us something meaty to chew on, like a title or a new trailer, even if they don't give us the date. And yeah, I mean, sure, they're giving us Skyward Sword. They've already done Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in HD. We all expect it, and I kind of do too. That's not a bold prediction. I'm just kind of falling in line with what a lot of us think. Yeah, Nintendo's probably going to also bring over some other classic Zelda games, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time, you know, so on and so forth. Maybe they do some DS and 3DS games. Maybe A Link Between Worlds and The Phantom Hourglass gets some sort of re-release. Who knows? But I think that these are the kinds of things Nintendo will almost for sure do to celebrate the anniversary this year. Now, the last point I want to make as I wrap this video up here is to let you guys know another main reason I think they're going to do it. And it's because if they don't do it, it's really going to stand out and it's going to feel bad, you know? Feels bad, man. That's how it'll feel if Nintendo completely ignores the 35th anniversary. And when you consider how that could look for them, That's one of the main reasons I think they're not done with Zelda this year, and why I think an anniversary thing is coming. Because it's gonna honestly make a bigger impact and more negative noise if they just don't address it. And they kind of got themselves into this trap, you could say, by just doing the Mario 35 thing. Their ability to acknowledge Mario's 35th and do something for that, only the year before Zelda and Metroid celebrate the same anniversary. It would feel really strange for them to outright ignore it and just pretend like it's not happening. That doesn't feel like the Nintendo thing to do right here and now. There's too much money for them to make by releasing and celebrating Zelda 35 kinds of things, you know, and same for Metroid. I really just think that Nintendo, they know the business. I knew that they were going to come back to Nintendo Directs because they were way too valuable to the company, and they did. I also see a Zelda 35th celebration as very valuable to the company, valuable to the franchise, valuable to their release year of 2021, and so I just can't see a world where they would outright ignore it, because we have to remember, it's not just, if they don't do it, it's not just like, oh, us fans didn't get the Zelda 35 things that we want. It's also Nintendo actively ignoring it. And because they set themselves up with the Mario 35th celebration, it's borderline impossible for me to envision a world where they don't do it for Zelda as well. So these are my thoughts and theories. Yes, I'm being optimistic, but I truly believe something is going to happen this year, and I hope that this helps you feel a little bit more optimistic about it as well. And of course, what do you think? Do you agree with my thoughts and my guesses and my optimism, or are you on the opposite end of the spectrum and you think it's done for, there's no more Zelda, and Nintendo does not care about the 35th celebration? Whatever you think, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.